I'm Patrick Lilia. Sunshine today with a high of 64, then tonight partly cloudy with a low of 34. AM 950 is celebrating 15 years of Matt McNeil on March 30th, and you're invited. Join us at Crooner Supper Club in Fridley from 2 to 5 for an unforgettable celebration. Head over to am950radio.com right now to get your tickets.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting live from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and streaming live right now on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@TheGailey Show. This is The Gailey Show. I am your host, John Parker. Jim is off today. In the control room is Patrick Lilia. Patrick, hello.
Good afternoon, JP. How are you today?
I spent the weekend raking our driveway in Wisconsin because it was so muddy that it was borderline unpassable. So we were literally with like rakes trying to get the mud at that point back into place. So I'm a little sore today, to be honest.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the wilder weather weekends that you will see. I was down in southwestern Minnesota this this past weekend, and my car was completely iced over from the rain that froze overnight. So that was fun.
It's just, I know it's that time of year where the weather goes bonkers anyway, but I feel like with climate change, it's just getting sort of, to go from 70 to 30 to 60 to 12. It's the potholes are going to be out of control here. Anyhow, what are we going to have on the show today? Well, we're going to spend in the last part of the hour talking about rethinking LGBTQ discrimination, and the legal theory that's been advancing for this for years is not as maybe well understood as folks should know it, and particularly because MAGA is doing a lot right now to overturn some Supreme Court decisions using that theory. We're going to have some new reporting on political attacks in Utah and Iowa. Fun there. But up first, the betrayal heard round the podcasts. And I'm going to be curious what you all thought about this, because I know it's been all over the social media, all over the blue sky. We're there with Matt McNeil and AM 950 and all the other shows. You can find us there on Blue Sky at thegaileyshow.org. But our call-in number, 952-946-6205. 952-946-6205. Your thoughts on what we're going to talk about here, which is Gavin Newsom. So this guy, I wasn't going to talk about this until there was new reporting coming out from LGBTQ Nation that made me go, oh, okay, here we go. But let's start at the beginning. So some initial facts. This is the governor of California, who big, LGBTQ supporter, one of the front runners considered already for the 2028 presidential primaries for the Democratic Party, starts a podcast called This is Gavin Newsom, which is clearly, his attempt to lay the groundwork for a presidential campaign. And what are all the things, that he can do to start building that base of support for 2025? On his very first episode, he decides to have a conversation with MAGA conspiracy theorist and uber anti-LGBTQ hater Charlie Kirk. Now, for Governor Newsom, this is sort of a head scratcher. Like, of all the conservatives that you wanted to have on there, that's the one that you wanted to go with. And this is the same governor who was like, we need to take the fight to the red states. And he was standing up to governors like Governor DeSantis in Florida. He was putting up billboards in red states. He was airing his own commercials in Florida. He wasn't running for anything. He was just like, we need to let people know about how dangerous MAGA policies are. And so he starts this podcast, sits down with Mr. Charlie Kirk to talk about the major issue of our time. The issue that is more important than the future of the American democracy experiment. It is more important than addressing the havoc of unregulated capitalism, more important than American foreign relations and its role in a world dominated by dictators, more important than climate change, this is the issue that historians in 50 years will look back on and declare as the greatest, most important legal, educational, and political question of the early 21st century. Trans women in sports. Do you know that the NCAA president in December of 2024, testifying before a U.S. Senate panel, said that there are 10, actually fewer than 10 transgender athletes in all of NCAA sports? This issue clearly deserves national legislation. I mean, the governor of the 5th largest economy in the world needs to address this urgent issue in the first episode of his podcast. This is Gavin Newsom. Forget climate change's effects on the wildfires in California, okay? Forget the film industry bailing on Los Angeles. Forget the cost of housing. Forget immigration. Trans women are playing sports. And let's ignore, apparently we're just going to ignore the data, and we're going to ignore the science, and we're just going to declare it's unfair. It's a question of fairness. Okay. So, already annoyed, but not annoyed enough to waste my time on this show talking about him. Basically, in my mind, canceled, not supporting him anymore. Like, why? Why even bother? Of all the stuff that's going on, why do you want to talk about that on your very first episode of your podcast? Well, now, LGBTQ Nation is reporting that Newsom's chief of staff, Nathan Branken, and Legislative Affairs Secretary Christine Orr pushed for the suppression of trans issues reaching the governor's desk. According to the reporting, they went to legislators and they said, we do not want pro-LGBTQ legislation coming to the governor's desk. Do not advance those bills. Now, this is so frustrating from a guy who made his career on supporting the LGBTQ community. Made his career. Remember back in the day when Prop 8 had happened and it was illegal to have gay marriage, and he was the mayor of San Francisco, and he took this big old stand about how gay marriage should be legal, and I'm going to be the hero here, and I'm going to marry people myself in front of City Hall. And he has been a vociferous, I am an ally. I am an ally. Look at me being an ally. All this LGBTQ legislation, me going on these speaking tours. Like, this is who I am. I am an LGBTQ ally. Okay. And we have elected a person that the Democratic Party has said is the most dangerous president in the history of the country in terms of maintaining our republic. We are dealing with a climate change crisis that apparently nobody is caring about at the national level anymore. We're basically writing out the words climate change out of all federal policies and firing scientists from NOAA because, they said climate change. So apparently we can't have, people working in weather anymore for the federal government. This is what he wants to talk about. This is the main issue that he wants to talk about on his podcast. And he wants to do that with Charlie Kirk. He wants to do that with Steve Bannon. Does he think that he is going to peel away MAGA voters to vote for him in 2028? I mean, is he that delusional that he thinks that he's going to, by palling around with anti-LGBTQ activists and politicians, that by telling his chief of staff to go to the legislature and say, do not send us any pro-LGBTQ legislation, the governor of blue California is going to get MAGA votes? And as a queer person who has had an interest in politics for my lifetime, because I don't have an option of not being interested in politics. Politics governs my life on a day-to-day basis. I don't really want to care about the Supreme Court of the United States, like so many people in this country who have no idea the names of the justices right now, or what cases that they try on a day-to-day basis, or a term-by-term basis. I have to worry about that. I have to be dialed in to what these 9 straight people are going to do to me every June. Okay? I have to follow politics because I got to know, are the cops going to, break into my apartment and try to arrest me for having sex like they did in the case of Bowers v. Hardwick in the 1980s when the Supreme Court said, yeah, cops can go in there. You can arrest people. We can criminalize gay sex in this country. Okay. I have never seen such a short-sighted, ridiculous attempt to court voters that are never going to vote for you. And already, I can't believe, first of all, I can't believe there's already a poll about this, but apparently there is a poll of 1,000 California voters conducted by Capital Weekly found that 26% of respondents said their view of Governor Newsom worsened after hearing clips from his podcast interview with conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. So he's never going to get MAGA votes, and he's pissing off blue voters. And do you think that we're going to forget about this as the LGBTQ community? Because the thing is that if you want to be an idiot and talk about this on your podcast, okay, fine, free speech, whatever, go be an idiot. But when you send your chief of staff to the Hill, their version of the Hill in Sacramento, and tell them, do not send us pro-LGBTQ legislation, you're done. Game over. 86% of LGBTQ voters voted for Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and against Project 2025. One of the most united, electorally speaking, the LGBTQ community has been in the history of tracking this. You're done. I can't believe that he blew up his entire campaign. You think we're going to forget about this in 4 years? No, we're not going to forget about this in 4 years. But it is, I want to talk about, and we're going to take a break here, but when we come back, I want to talk about how this is actually symptomatic of the corporate Democratic leadership, particularly from straight men in the party, and how they approach LGBTQ issues. We're going to have more about that after this break. Don't forget to follow us on Blue Sky. We're at thegayleyshow.org for more progressive news and analysis. Stay tuned. We'll have more after this break.
Hey, it's Patrick. We're headed into March, which means spring cleaning is almost here. You're about to realize that, and so is just about everybody else, too. That's why you need to beat the spring cleaning rush with big savings and priority booking by calling our friends at Zero Res right now. We just had Zero Res over at our house last week, and they did such a wonderful job. They were on time, professional, and we couldn't be happier with the results. Spring is a time for renewal. Let's
Tech.org. End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand that choosing the right hospice care provider can be overwhelming, but we're here to assist you. Learn more today at marytinc.com.
Hi, this is Frank Brown of Minuteman Press Uptown with a question for our local leaders. How do you reward your employees? How do you appreciate your business partners? Thousands of local organizations just like yours count on Minuteman Uptown for promotional products. We craft custom awards and plaques. We print your logo on apparel, office supplies, and thousands of other items. Minuteman Uptown helps you reward employees and stay top of mind with customers and vendors. We print everything. Contact us today at mpuptown.com.
Located just north of 50th in France, the Great Wall Restaurant has provided a delicious taste of authentic Chinese cuisine since 1981. Specializing in Szechuan and Peking dishes, they offer one of the most extensive menus in the Twin Cities. Favorites include hot and sour soup, pan-fried dumplings, and mushu pork with homemade Chinese pancakes. Stop by their Edina location or call for takeout at 952-927-4439. See the full menu at greatwallrestaurant.us.
Welcome back to the Daily Show. I am your host, John Parker. It is 21 minutes past the hour. Our call-in number, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. Am I the only one going nuts on this? What are your thoughts on Governor Newsom and his weird approach that he is taking right now? Because maybe I'm the only one on this. I there's a lot of conversation happening on Blue Sky, happening on the internet. But where I was going before the break is my experience of the Democratic Party presidential politics. So I want to be very mindful of where I'm going to draw that line in the sand and say presidential politics is this constant. First of all straight men, cisgender men that are, running for office, with the sole exception of Pete Buttigieg in the last 40 years, ever, retaining the right to say when and how LGBTQ rights are going to be a thing. So we see this with President Clinton, all of the community really on board in 92, really excited. He's promising some big things, gets into office, and the first thing that he does is bails on the question of LGBTQ service members and comes up with the quote unquote compromise of don't ask, don't tell. Okay. So already, campaigns, gets us on board, and then throws us under the bus. And then in 96, there's the Defense of Marriage Act, DOMA, where they spun it. So in the campaign, if you go back to the campaign itself, Clinton is trying to say, don't worry, y'all. I'm not going to let the gays get married. That's not what I'm here for. We're going to get this passed, DOMA. We're not going to let that happen. It's okay. I'm still on your side. Then has the audacity to spin it later to say, I had to pass and sign DOMA because if I didn't, there would now be a federal constitutional amendment banning gay marriage. So I had to throw you under the bus to make that happen. And it reminds me of that senator during the Lavender Scare whose son was going to be outed by Senator McCarthy and his, absolutely atrocious campaign to root out all the gays out of the federal government. And they were blackmailing the senator, and the senator ended up taking his own life because he would rather, in his mind, he was protecting his family and his son. That's how awful it was to have a gay kid, right? The idea, the stigma, how I can't allow my son to be known as gay, right? And so instead of, even in 1996, we still don't have a Democratic Party who is willing to be like, no, yeah, we actually believe in human rights. We do actually believe in, rights for LGBTQ people. So we're going to stop and get in the way of any attempt to have a constitutional amendment banning gay marriage. No. DOMA. All right, fine. Then we see, fast forward, Kerry, also not great on this issue. But then we have, President Obama, another example of this, where steadfastly against gay marriage. And the issue is even a non-starter because he's like, I am not for this, so we're not going to go anywhere. And then we had to sit through his I'm evolving on the issue. That was the word, evolving on the issue. And it was like, really? So our rights have to sit here and wait until you, a straight cisgender man, decide when it is time for us to have those rights. Biden, Vice President Biden, given so much credit at the time for going on Meet the Press during the Obama administration and saying, yes, we are going to go for gay marriage now. And apparently President Obama was pissed off at him about that because he was like, hey, I hadn't made an announcement yet. Now you're kind of publicly pressuring me to go in that direction. Okay. Again, though, here we have a straight cisgender man who opposed for it for years suddenly decides I'm going to go for it and I'm going to decide that it's time for this to happen. Okay. And yet here we have again another straight cisgender man we thought was there for us. Apparently not. Now he's deciding when trans women and transgender athletes can and cannot compete in sports. And I just want to, let's look at some data, first of all, on this, because data is actually important if we still believe in facts and data, which apparently the governor of California no longer does. But there is a study, big study, published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine, leading peer-reviewed journal in sports medicine. Significant findings from their recent report that was published in last year. Just going to bullet point these out. Transgender women performed worse than cisgender women in tests measuring lower body strength. Transgender women performed worse than cisgender women in tests measuring lung function. Transgender women's bone density was found to be equivalent to that of cisgender women, which is linked to muscle strength. So no advantage there. And there was no meaningful differences. There were no, rather, meaningful differences found between the two groups' hemoglobin profiles. And hemoglobin, had to look this up, plays a crucial role in athletic performance based off of delivering oxygen to the muscles, right? So elite athletes have, higher, have intense hemoglobin, apparently. I'm not going to get into all the science of it because, frankly, I don't want to get into all the science of it right now because that's not the point. The point is there was no difference between trans women and cis women when it came to this very crucial thing of hemoglobin. There are, according to Forbes, there was a recent report that generated an in-depth review of all English language scientific literature about transgender women athletic participation in elite sport. And they found that biomedical factors such as lung size, bone density, and hip to knee joint angle are not indicative of athletic prowess, that testosterone levels do not predict athletic performance or overall athleticism, and social elements such as nutrition, training regimen, and equipment accessibility significantly influence the athlete's performance, but are not cited and are disregarded in policy formulation. There you have it. I'm going to link to that in our show notes and on our website. For all the people who think this is the greatest, most horrible issue of all time, of trans people participating in sports and thinking that there's this built-in advantage, and there isn't. No advantage whatsoever. I'm not going to deal with this. I'm going to move on to other topics here. Unless you all want to call in and share your thoughts about it. But for right now, we're going to take a break. Please support the sponsors and advertisers of the show and AM 950. They keep progressive news on the air. Tell them you heard about them on The Gaily Show.
Hello, Minnesota. This is Stephanie Miller. Make sure to start your day off right with the Stephanie Miller Show every weekday morning from 8 to 11 right here on AM 950.
If you go to shoprainbowrd.com, you will find an amazing variety of adult novelties, literally thousands of items that you can peruse in the privacy of your home and have shipped to your door. Plus, in the store, you can find swimwear, casual wear, underwear, everywhere. Rainbow Road is located at 109 West Grand Street near Loring Park. Gift cards are available for the hard to shop for. Go to shoprainbowrd.com.
Hey, it's Tom. Minnesotans take pride in protecting our lakes, trees, and natural beauty, and now we have a chance to do even more. The state is committed to 100% renewable energy by 2040, and by switching to all-energy solar, you can help make that goal a reality. Solar works in Minnesota year-round. Now is the time to act. Some federal rebates could disappear with changes in the federal government, so don't wait. Don't miss out. All Energy Solar was named Minnesota's best gold winner in 2024 and recognized as a top solar contractor by Solar Power World.
Go solar and break free from rising energy costs. Generate your own power and reduce your carbon footprint. Join All Energy Solar's free webinar on March 25th at 6 p.m. or March 27th at noon to learn how. Get a step-by-step guide, ask questions, and see if solar is right for you. Register now at allenergysolar.com/webinar.
The future is renewable. The choice is yours. Stop paying the utility company and start producing your own clean energy with All Energy Solar. Get a free consultation today at allenergysolar.com.
Everyone knows I love Rudy Luther Toyota, but do you know who else loves Toyotas? Consumer Reports. They're out with their best of 2025 auto issue, and once again, it reads Toyota, Toyota, Toyota. Of the new 2025 models, Consumer Reports recommends the Prius, Corolla, Corolla Hybrid, the Camry, the Sienna, the Corolla Cross Hybrid, the RAV4, the RAV4 Hybrid, the Highlander, and the Highlander Hybrid. In almost every class, you'll find a Toyota. Find one for yourself at Rudy Luther Toyota, the southeast corner of 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hey, it's Freddie Bell, host of New Beginnings, designed for those of us more seasoned, I'll say, with informative talk on everything from health, finance, local and regional news, volunteerism, spirituality, and even a bit of humor tossed in. So if you're proud to be a more seasoned listener, tune in to New Beginnings Sunday afternoons at 1 right here on the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, AM 950.
With a look at your AM 950 weather, I'm Patrick Lilia. Sunshine today with a high of 64, then tonight partly cloudy with a low of 34. For more than 40 years, the Great Wall Restaurant has been serving up Szechuan and Mandarin favorites. The Great Wall is located just north of 50th in France on the Minneapolis-Edina City line. Check them out at greatwallrestaurant.us.
AM 950, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota.
Coming to you live from the studios of AM 950, KTNF, the Progressive Voice of Minnesota, and streaming live right now on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@TheGaily Welcome to The Gaily Show. I am your host, John Parker. Jim is off today. It is 33 minutes past the hour. Our call-in number, 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205. We have Debbie on the line from Eden Prairie. Debbie, what are your thoughts today?
Well, I just wanted to say, first of all, that I really appreciate your program. I listen to it almost every day, and I really learn a lot from you guys. And also, I just wanted to mention that Newsom had an hour-and-a-half meeting with Trump in February. It was February 5th in Washington, D.C., and it was lasted for more than an hour and a half. And supposedly it was to talk about aid for victims of the L.A. wildfires. And the Newsom spokesman said that the meeting was very productive afterwards. So I'm kind of wondering what they really talked about.
I did not know about this. They talked in February of this year.
Yep. After it was in D.C. after Trump was elected.
Well, maybe they were bonding about how trans people shouldn't be in sports.
Well,
That
yeah, I don't know. It could be like if you do this, I'll do this, or what. You know what I mean? Quid pro quo.
yes, I think we've seen that, haven't we, with the tech bros?
Right.
Facebook and Target locally here, and all of that. I think it's what are folks giving him to get on his good side, even though there is no good side. He's going to,
Right.
harm everybody anyway. He's only on his own side.
Yep.
Well, thank you for that, Debbie.
Okay.
I did not know about that. And yeah, productive meeting. What exactly was he doing there
Right.
talking to Trump? Thank you
Okay.
for the kind words about the program as well. Really appreciate you having you as a listener, Debbie.
Okay. Well, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Oh, right. I didn't know about that. Hour and a half. I understand a governor who needs to get FEMA funds and needs to get federal funds needs to talk to the president. But for a guy who called a special legislative session after the election to future-proof California from any legislative attacks from the Trump administration, where are the notes? We need an enterprising journalist to get the notes, the readout from that meeting, and to tell us what's going on there. Because if the governor of blue, what is a good metaphor for blue? If the governor of California is capitulating to Trump, wow. At least we have Governor Walz out there taking it to them, and every red district. He's impressing me again. Governor Walz taking the fight to them. We thought Governor Newsom was doing that, but now apparently it's going to be Walz. I want to highlight some reporting elsewhere in the country that's happening here. In Utah, lawmakers could be doing away with pride flags in schools, in government buildings, and Alex Gonzalez with Public News Service and Utah News Connection has more on this from Utah.
Utah Governor Spencer Cox could sign a bill that would ban LGBTQ plus pride flags from Utah's public schools and government buildings. The bill's Republican sponsors argue it's all in an effort to encourage political neutrality among government workers and teachers. Chad Call with the Utah Pride Center calls the bill wild government overreach and unconstitutional. Call says folks in other communities can use or wear symbols that indicate their values. He sees the pride flag being no different.
Those symbols are largely recognized as free speech in this country. This bill is, in our opinion, an infringement on that free speech, especially in the workplace where people have a right to express themselves. We feel like pride flags are in alignment with that.
Call encourages Cox to veto the bill and consider how many Utahns in the state would be impacted. Just over 6% of the state's adult population identifies as LGBTQ+, according to UCLA's Williams Institute. Call argues that Cox and other lawmakers have an obligation to adequately represent all Utahns, not just a select few. Utah Pride is taking place on June 7th and 8th in Salt Lake City. The celebration is organized by the Utah Pride Center. Call says while he doesn't know if Cox will sign HB 77 into law or not, he adds Utah Pride and other local pride celebrations will still take place.
We will still gather together the first week of June. We will still fly our pride flags, even if the city can't join us in that. We will still gather and we will still come together and celebrate something that we have for decades in the state.
As LGBTQ+ rights have come under fire across state legislatures, Call has a simple message to LGBTQ+ folks who may feel discouraged and disappointed with their elected officials.
Our community is stronger than this. Our community has been through challenges and situations like this in the past. It doesn't make them okay, but it does make us a resilient and strong community.
For Utah News Connection, I'm Alex Gonzalez. Find our trust indicators at publicnewsservice.org.
We want to thank Public News Service for that. If you're wondering what the trust indicators are, this is a great news agency. And the trust indicators, if you go to their website, just Google Public News Service or search for them on DuckDuckGo. There are other search engines to use beyond Google, but you can go there and see why their reporting is so. It is a reporter's reporting, if you will, right? There was an actor's actor. This is reporters reporting there at Public News Service. And I hope that there is a legal challenge to this, because we keep hearing from MAGA and the far right and Vice President J.D. Vance about free speech, that free speech is being regulated and we don't have any more free speech in this country. Well, what happens when you're not allowed to fly a pride flag anymore, that you're not allowed to wear a pride button on your clothes, that you're not allowed to have a book that you've written in a library? Whose free speech is that? Also, and this is our next door neighbor, Iowa. Iowans are reacting to the removal of civil rights protections protecting gender identity. And this is very important, not just for the Iowa LGBTQ community, but it is the first state in the nation to remove civil rights protections based off of gender identity. Mark Moran with the Public News Service and Iowa News has more.
Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds has signed a measure that removes gender identity protections for LGBTQ plus people from the state civil rights code. Opponents call it mean-spirited. Senate File 418 makes Iowa the first state in the country to remove civil rights protections for a group of people who've been protected by law, taking the words gender identity out of its code. Common Good Iowa Executive Director Ann Disher says the measure belies Iowa's open-minded reputation and sends the wrong message to the rest of the nation.
Basically, it is saying that it is okay to discriminate against trans people in the workplace, in housing, in school, and in their financial lives.
Supporters of the measure, which was the first bill Reynolds signed in 2025, say including gender identity in Iowa's civil rights code threatens common sense laws that ban transgender participation in sports and clarify who can use which public restrooms. Iowa passed its Civil Rights Act in 1965. Hundreds of protesters rallied against the bill at the State House in Des Moines before Reynolds signed it. Disher argues Iowa lawmakers are not representing their constituents.
I really firmly believe this bill does not reflect the true beliefs of most Iowans. I think it's incredibly more extreme than Iowans truly are in their hearts.
If it isn't challenged in court, Iowa's Senate File 418 is scheduled to take effect July 1st. I'm Mark Moran for Iowa News Service. Find our trust indicators at publicnewsservice.org.
Thank you to Mark Moran and the Public News Service and Iowa News Service for providing that reporting for us. That is something that you're going to see more of here at the Gailey Show as we are expanding our coverage of what's happening across the nation, that we are going to be reaching out and having journalists and their work highlighted on this show. To that end, tomorrow we're actually going to be featuring Windy City Times reporter Jake Wittich, who's going to join us to talk about his new reporting happening in Chicago. Importantly, a trades organization suing the federal government, specifically the Trump administration, over their executive orders, as well as an important children's hospital and their stance to stop or pause, quote unquote, transgender healthcare. And also going to have some interesting reporting around Illinois LGBTQ reactions to their lawmakers going back on supporting the community. But the case in Iowa, again, I hope that is challenged, and I hope that I'll be very curious to see where it goes, because there is a interesting legal theory that underpins the rights and protections that we have in this country. And we think of it, I think, on a day-to-day basis as, okay, well, I am a gay man, or I am a lesbian woman, or I am bisexual, and any discrimination that I experience, whether I am kicked out of my apartment, or a doctor refuses to provide me with health care, or I am fired from my job, or I am not allowed to get a job, all of which we can all, I think, agree that shouldn't happen no matter who you are. You should be able to get an apartment based off of your ability to afford the apartment, right? You should be able to get a job based off of your qualifications. You should have healthcare because you should have healthcare. You should not be going in there and having doctors violating the Hippocratic Oath and saying, oh, well, yeah, no, I'm not going to provide you with healthcare based off of some aspect of your identity. We all agree that. And then it's LGBTQ people, and suddenly, oh, no, well, he didn't actually mean that. What are you talking about? But this legal theory that's been happening actually flips that. And there is Title VII, which is of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits discrimination based off of sex, not sexual orientation. And yet this is the clause through which we have been having the legal victories that we've been having. And the argument is as such. Having attraction to a man is not in and of itself wrong or illegal. It's the gender identity of the person who is having that attraction that can make it illegal, right? So a man having attraction to another man, that is wrong because the person identifies as a man. If it was a woman having sexual attraction to a man, okie dokie, fine, whatever, right? This legal theory, I think on it is helpful to have more broader understanding in further uniting the LGBTQ community, because there are fissures. It is, there are fissures. There are folks within the community, unfortunately, that are like, we shouldn't all be lumped together. Gender identity issues should be over there and LGB issues should be over here. There was that nonsense of LGB without the T, just, hogwash. And you find this, popping up in places that it shouldn't be happening within the community, these types of conversations. Thankfully, last November, 86% of the LGBTQ community said, no, we are united. We do not want Project 2025. But how would it be if we all began to understand the legal theory that the discrimination that is visited upon us by MAGA, by, I hate to say it, it's straight folks who are writing these laws and implementing them. And thankfully, Democratic Party and progressive people have been fighting back within the party and saying, we're not doing this anymore. And we're actually going to advance pro-LGBTQ legislation. And you see governors like Governor Walz here in Minnesota designate this state as a trans refuge state. So we do see the change happening, right? We see that. But if we begin to understand the discrimination against the community as all based off of gender identity and not sexual orientation, I think that unites us in a way that we haven't necessarily been united before. And I want to continue that. I'm going to get into that a little bit further. We're going to take a break here, but I think it's important as we're thinking about how we're going to respond to these, that we're aware of the legal theory underpinning all of the successes that we've been having and affirmed by the Supreme Court in a recent case. And this is what we see the Trump administration going after and even attempting to limit the scope of the Supreme Court's decision, right? To say, no, you went too far, or we just don't like it, so we're just going to ignore it, right? That and everything else. Stay tuned. More on this after the break.
Join us on Thursday, March 20th for a special live 2-hour Ghostbox radio event starting at the special time of 9 p.m. Travis Walton was abducted by aliens November 5th, 1975, and wrote about his experience in his book, The Walton Experience.
I felt like I was dying, and this is what really fueled the panic when I finally laid eyes on these creatures. They came around the table, and the three of them were coming towards me, and I just grabbed something from behind me and started swinging it at them.
The book was later made into the 1993 film Fire in the Sky. Travis Walton, along with Jennifer Stein, director of the film, Travis Walton the Movie, will join me for this special 2-hour live interview along with questions from callers. Join us for the live Travis Walton Ghostbox Radio 2-hour special, Thursday, March 20th at the special time of 9 p.m.
Connections Radio Show is all about tapping into our hardwired hunger to connect. We examine meaningful connections to ourselves, our community, and the world around us. By opening the door to innovative insights by a wide variety of interesting guests, we'll make the connections to something bigger than ourselves. Join me, Lori Fitz, your host of Connections Radio Show, and together we'll make the connections. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Greg Bakken here. I've told you about the out-of-the-world roast beef sandwiches at Maverick's Real Roast Beef, but I haven't told you about their Philly steak sandwiches, turkey bacon avocado sandwich, BLT, crispy chicken, fish sandwiches, brisket, or pulled pork. Okay, you get the idea. They make a lot of delicious food to the same standard as their famous roast beef sandwiches, and now I'm starving. I'm going to go to Maverick's Real Roast Beef off Lexington and Roseville, and you need to go too. Check out their menu at mavericksbeef.com.
Are you experiencing troubles with thinking, comprehending, or speaking, have post-COVID brain fog, ADHD, concussion, tremors from Parkinson's, mental health issues, or simply striving to maximize your brain's potential? At Hypercharge Wellness Centers, we deliver transformative results for the brain. Hypercharge Wellness's brain fitness protocol utilizes cutting-edge modalities, including PEMF, red light therapy beds, and transcranial laser, which all work together to improve focus and cognitive functions. These treatments aim to improve the brain's blood flow and electrical patterns, which reduces anxiety and enhances relaxation, providing a comprehensive approach to brain health optimization. All are invited to experience this life-changing journey towards achieving the pinnacle of cognitive and emotional well-being. Call or go online to schedule your free Hypercharge Wellness introductory session valued at $200 today. This is your opportunity to feel the difference for yourself. No matter where you are in the Twin Cities, there is a convenient location near you. Visit hyperchargeclinic.com now. That's hyperchargeclinic.com. Hypercharge is hope.
Welcome back to the Gailey Show. It is also happy St. Patrick's Day. I keep forgetting that it's St. Patrick's Day. But for those who celebrate, happy St. Patrick's Day to all of our friends in the Irish community and in Ireland, particularly the gays. No, I'm joking. But yes, I know. Anyway, we were talking about a big issue before the break, and I want to continue it here. The legal theory that discrimination against LGBTQ people is happening based off of gender identity and not sexual orientation. And I want to read from the case in 2020 where the Supreme Court ruled for the LGBTQ community, where they said, and I'm going to quote this directly, there are two individuals to the employer's mind materially identical in all respects, except that one is a man and the other a woman. If the employer fires the male employee for no reason other than the fact he is attracted to men, the employer discriminates against him for traits or actions it tolerates in his female colleague. Put differently, the employer intentionally singles out an employee to fire based in part on the employee's sex. All right, and that is related to specifically Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which says that a person cannot be discriminated against because of their race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. And I think that it's important, I'm going to make the argument that it's important that we begin to shift our understanding of this, because we also see it in hate crimes. When you pull up FBI data on who is being attacked, whether these are physical assaults, whether these are being mugged, verbal assaults, sexual assaults, murder, the two communities within the larger rainbow that are most affected, trans women and gay men. Why? Because for MAGA, for conservatives, the issue is men doing something that men shouldn't be doing. Men shouldn't be having relationships with other men. And men, quotation marks here, big quotation marks, shouldn't be posing, big quotation marks, as women, right? Their belief that trans women don't exist, that it's just a man in drag, essentially, justifies violence against us. of who they perceive to be a man, not doing what they perceive men should be doing. And I think once we start to think of it within the framework of this legal theory, which has its limitations, yes, but because we are operating within Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, we have to kind of run with this right now because it has been successful for us, even on conservative Supreme Court and within various conservative federal courts as well. The idea, the legal theory, that the discrimination that we face, the LGBTQ community, is primarily based off of our gender identities and not our sexual orientations. And once we start to do this, it creates a unified bond and understanding that under the law, under Title VII, the discrimination that we're facing, the claims that we're making, are based off of our gender identity. And it creates, I believe, the ability to create a more cohesive culture within the LGBTQ community that further prevents us from fracturing and saying, well, I'm different. I'm a gay man, so I am different than trans folks. I am a lesbian woman, so I am different from trans folks. I am pansexual, so I'm different than trans folks. No, because the discrimination that we're going to suffer is propagated by folks who believe that we are not doing what our prescribed genders should be doing. Men should be having relationships and getting married to women. Women should be having relationships and getting married to men. If you don't do that, then they reserve the right to fire you, to kick you out of your apartment, to physically assault you, to sexually assault you, to murder you. We need to find ways where we can, as often as possible, be reinforcing the community bonds here. And I think understanding this legal theory, whether we fully, say this is it, this is what it's always going to be. No, I think that we need further legislation here. We cannot just rely on this legal theory, this one sole theory that has proven successful thus far, but will not always be successful. We need further legislation. But I think understanding that and understanding how we are as a community being targeted by MAGA and by the conservatives is really important, because we need to keep finding all of those areas, queer folks and our allies who are going to challenge this as well, keeping us together and united. It's going to be a very long 4 years. If we can get to the 4 years, we may need to have some revolutionary work done before that. But that's for a different show. Up next is going to be the Matt McNeil. I am way off on my timing here. We've still got some time. Tomorrow on the show, Jake Whittage. Very excited to have him joining us for the first time to talk about his reporting out of Chicago, what's happening in the community there. On Wednesday, Christopher Kane, White House correspondent for the Washington Blade, is going to be back on the show to talk about his reporting out of the White House and out of DC. Very important there. Jim is going to be back with us tomorrow as well. We've got some film reviews coming up for you by the end of the week on Friday. Also, one of the cast members of Disney's Frozen at the Children's Theater Company is going to join us this week to talk about their show. Very exciting that Children's Theater has that show coming to us here in the Twin Cities. But for right now, the Matt McNeil Show is coming up next. Stay tuned after that for Native Roots Radio. In the meantime, keep it queer, America.
Keep it queer.
Located just north of 50th in France,